We are going to talk about Unit 1, Food Chemistry, Chapter 6, the Principal Food. The principal foods are grouped in 7 groups. These groups are cereals, milk and dairy products, eggs, meat, fatty substances, vegetal proteins, and single-cell proteins. The principal foods provide the essential nutrients to the body. The first group is cereals. Cereals are grain seeds of the cultivated plants. For example, wheat, rice, and corn. Cereals are rich in carbohydrates. Cereals are the most important source of food for humans and animals. Group number 2, milk and dairy products. 2.1 Milk. Milk is the main source of all nutrients, especially proteins and calcium, along with phosphate ions, and these are minerals. Cheese. Cheese is a dairy product prepared by precipitating the protein of milk, called casein. How? By adding rennet, and this is a substance containing an enzyme called renin. This enzyme coagulates the protein of milk, or by adding an edible acid such as vinegar, which lowers the pH of milk and coagulates the protein. Then filtration is applied. It is good to know that cheese does not contain carbohydrates. While yogurt is prepared by the fermentation of milk using a pure culture bacteria called a starting material, in Arabic it is called rawbi. The sour taste of yogurt is due to the fermentation of lactose into lactic acid, which is acidic in taste. And lactic acid is responsible for the sour taste of yogurt. By the way, fermentation means the life of bacteria without oxygen. The composition of yogurt is similar to that of milk. Now we are going to continue with lactose intolerance, which is a part of milk and dairy products group. First of all, we know that lactose is found only in milk. Lactose is a disaccharide or an oligosaccharide composed of 2 simple sugars, glucose and galactose. And the enzyme that hydrolyzes lactose is called lactase. Now, in normal cases, lactose must be hydrolyzed in the small intestine by the enzyme lactase into glucose and galactose. A big molecule is converted into 2 simple molecules. This reaction is a catabolic reaction. Some people cannot digest lactose, and here a problem is obtained. The problem is called lactose intolerance, and later is known as a disease. This disease results from the following reasons or causes: genetic defect, physiological decline with age, injuries to the mucosa lining the intestine. When the lactose remains in the intestine undigested, it may cause attraction of water molecules, causing fullness, nausea, and diarrhea. Adding to that, the bacterial fermentation of lactose into lactic acid and some gases like carbon dioxide adding to the discomfort. Group number 3, meat. Meat contains about 20% proteins, 20 to 30% lipids, 1% minerals as iron, and vitamins as vitamins B9 and B12. This group of mineral, iron, and vitamins B9 and B12 is used for treating anemia. The rest composition of meat is water. Group number 4, eggs. The egg white is composed basically of albumin and traces of minerals and vitamins. Traces means very low amounts. The yolk is composed of dispersed lipids and proteins in water. The main proteins are vitellin and vitellogenin. Yolk is the egg yellow, صفار البيض. Dispersed means insoluble in water. Yolk is insoluble in water. That's why the yolk is dispersed in water. Now we turn to the group number 5, fatty substances. The lesson of lipids is studied in chapter 2. But here we are going to study the rancidity of lipids. What is the meaning of rancidity? Simply, rancidity means oxidation of lipids in the presence of oxygen. Oxidation or rancidity of an unsaturated component due to the presence of double covalent bond or bonds leads to the formation of small molecules called aldehydes, ketones, and carboxylic acids, which cause the unpleasant taste and objectionable odors. Keep in mind, polyunsaturated fatty acids are oxidized faster than monounsaturated fatty acids. Why? Because, as we said before, oxidation occurs on the double covalent bonds. So the polyunsaturated, that means containing many double covalent bonds per molecule, are subjected to more probability of oxidation. That's why polyunsaturated fatty acids are oxidized faster than the monounsaturated fatty acids. Monounsaturated fatty acids means one double covalent bond. Now we are going to see group number 6, vegetal proteins. The cereals, wheat, some leguminous plants like soya beans, fava beans, and peanuts, and potatoes are important sources of low-cost proteins. And this is very important to the poor people. Soya beans is particularly rich in proteins, also rich in lipids. Group number 7, proteins of microorganisms, or called single-cell proteins. Proteins of one single cell. These are considered as a new, non-traditional, and low-cost source of proteins, and this is very important. Why? because they have the following common properties. They are rich in proteins, they are well and easily preserved in the form of powder, they have variety of culture mediums. Yeast is the most important example of cultivated microorganisms. Now we are going to study the second part of chapter 6, the food additives. What is the definition of food additives? Food additives are substances that are not consumed as food by themselves, but they are added to food for the following reasons: to preserve and maintain the nutritional quality of food. Number two, to make food more attractive. These are the two main purposes of food additives. The first food additive is preservatives. Preservatives prevent or reduce the growth of microorganisms in food and therefore can be stored for a long time. These usually are added to the processed food. Examples: benzoic acid, which is a common food preservative, but it may be toxic at high levels of consumptions. Another food additive is sorbitol, which is safer than benzoic acid. Antioxidants. Anti means opposite. The opposite of oxidation. Antioxidants prevent oxidation. They are used to prevent the rancidity, oxidation of unsaturated fatty acids. Natural antioxidants like vitamin E for lipids, since it is a liposoluble vitamin, and vitamin C for aqueous mediums, since vitamin C is a hydrosoluble vitamin. There are also artificial antioxidants as BHA, the butylated hydroxyazole. They may cause tumors and allergy, and these are actually added to lipids, oils such as the tanning oil, زيت البحر. Sweeteners are not sugars, are not carbohydrates, but they give a sweet taste. There are many kinds and examples: synthetic as aspartame, which is a dipeptide, and saccharin and cyclamates. Another food additive is colorants. Colorants are added to food to make them more attractive or to replace colors lost during processing. Processing means صناعة الغذاء مثل المعلبات. They may have allergic effect. Some kinds, natural colorants as riboflavin, vitamin B2, and chlorophyll, المادة الخضراء تبعت ورق الشجر, and synthetic as tartrazine. Also, rhodamine is a colorant used in the Lebanese market. Another food additive is emulsifiers, stabilizers, and thickeners. All are the same. Emulsifiers and stabilizers are used to stabilize food emulsions. Thickeners are used to reinforce food texture. What is an emulsion? An emulsion is a mixture of oil and water by using a third party called the emulsifier. Miscellaneous food additives. There are many other types of food additives such as flavors, flavor enhancements, additives for pH control, and so on. This is the end of chapter 6.